Reaching the NFL mountaintop is a dream. But for a few, one wrong turn sent it all crashing down.
Led into court, charged with the brutal murder of his friend Odin Lloyd.
Former Virginia Tech quarterback Michael Vick's dogfighting ring was discovered.
First up, Hernandez. The guy was practically royalty, poised to become the face of the league, tearing it up for the New England Patriots. He carried them to Super Bowl 46, creating an unstoppable force alongside Rob Gronkowski, barely 20 years old. The kid had the world on a string, cash, notoriety, and a golden future. Yet, beneath the stadium lights lurked a darkness that was destined to burn it all to the ground. By 2013, the wheels fell off. Handcuffs slapped on. He faced charges for executing Odin Lloyd, a semi-pro baller with ties to his in-laws. Investigators claimed Hernandez was paranoid, terrified that Lloyd held keys to closets full of skeletons. Rather than dealing with it like a rational human, he allegedly plotted a cold-blooded hit. They found Lloyd's body riddled with bullets in an industrial park just a mile from the Star's front door. The Patriots wasted no time. Within hours, his locker was empty and the league blacklisted him, shattering a superstar trajectory instantly. In the courtroom, the state depicted a ruthless figure, someone who would pull the trigger just to keep his image pristine. The gavel came down in 2015, guilty of first-degree murder, locking him away for life with zero chance of parole.
Charging the defendant, Hernandez, and guilty of murder in the first.
Prison didn't stop the headlines. He actually beat a separate rap for a 2012 double homicide in Boston. But the court of public opinion had already closed its case. His legacy was mud. Stories leaked about gang affiliations, flop houses filled with weaponry and narcotics, and savage brawls behind the wall. Those close to him painted a split image, a magnetic personality masked by a hair-trigger temper that courted disaster. Life inside was a roller coaster. He reportedly found God, obsessing over scripture and patching things up with his estranged kin. Yet, the demons remained. He was getting high on synthetic stuff, racking up infractions, and getting into brutal scraps with other inmates. Even with the chaos, witnesses said he had an eerie sense of peace right before the end. On April 19, 2017, mere days after that acquittal, guards found him hanging from a bedsheet in his cell. An autopsy later revealed a severe case of CTE, that degenerative brain disease caused by smashing helmets for a living. It sparked a massive debate. Was he born violent, or did the game rewire his brain for aggression? Switching gears, let's look at the man who incinerated his career over a gruesome dogfighting ring, Michael Vick. Vick wasn't just a star, he was a revolution. The top pick in 2001. He completely reinvented what it meant to play quarterback. The man was a cheat code, smoking defenders with his legs and launching lasers from angles that shouldn't exist. Atlanta treated him like a god, but while the cameras rolled, Vick was making decisions that would poison his entire legacy. Then came 2007, and the house of cards came tumbling down. He was the mastermind behind Newz Kennels, a grim underground fighting ring. This wasn't just an investment. He was in the trenches training them, fighting them, and executing the losers by hanging, drowning, or beating them to death. Once the feds kicked the doors in, the backlash was nuclear. Sponsors fled like rats from a sinking ship. The league handed down an indefinite suspension, and overnight, an icon became public enemy number one. By July 2007, the grand jury indicted Vick and his crew on federal charges for running the interstate blood sport. Seeing no way out, he copped a plea deal for conspiracy and sponsoring the venture. He confessed to the whole ugly truth funding it, fighting them, pocketing the cash, and personally killing half a dozen dogs. To make matters worse, he flunked a drug test while out on bail, digging his hole even deeper. December 2007 saw the Hammer drop 23 months in federal lockup and a massive $1 million bill for the dog's rehab. Those animals needed lifetime support, and the Falcons cut ties before the ink was dry on the sentence. It looked like the end of the road. But in 2009, the Philadelphia Eagles gave him a second shot at redemption. He actually balled out in 2010, grabbing a division title and comeback player of the year, though injuries eventually slowed him down. Hanging up the cleats in 2017, he pivoted to broadcasting and advocacy, even working with the Humane Society to ban the very sport he once bankrolled. But we aren't done yet. Coming up, another gridiron giant who lit a match to his own career. Johnny Manziel. The name alone once electrified the gridiron as one of the most blinding talents in college football history, a double-threat sensation at Texas A&M. He smashed the record books as a rookie, becoming the first freshman ever to sling it for 3,000 yards and dash for $1,000 in one campaign. The guy cleaned house, taking home the Heisman, the Davy O'Brien, and the Manning hardware, and he captained the Aggies to a crushing 41-13 beatdown of Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. Everyone from the nosebleeds to the scouting departments thought he was a lock for NFL glory. But Manziel's own choices were a ticking time bomb waiting to derail the train. Snagged at pick 22 by the Cleveland Browns in the draft of 2014, Johnny touched down with a mountain of hype on his shoulders. But right out of the gate, his head wasn't in the game. He battled the bottle and pills, often hitting the club scene when he should have been grinding tape. The coaching staff griped that he walked in clueless, while the locker room soured on his total lack of professional discipline. Even the workouts before the draft were stained by antics that screamed not ready for the big leagues. His rep later painted a picture of a nightmare, dragging Manziel across the finish line while the kid showed up to key meetings still buzzing from the night before. To make matters worse, the drama away from the stadium just kept snowballing. Headlines were screaming about domestic disputes, public boozing, and wild nights, putting him in the national crosshairs for all the wrong reasons. The circus act totally eclipsed his raw talent, branding him as a high-risk liability. Adding to the mess, that sandlot magic he pulled off in college fell flat against pro defenses. Plus, mental health was a silent enemy in the background. Doctors eventually tagged him with bipolar disorder, a giant he tried to fight for ages without the right game plan. He later confessed to the press that he'd thrown in the towel, lost his drive, and let his personal demons take the wheel. Cleveland finally cut the cord in 2016 after a measly 14 appearances. He tried to claw his way back in the CFL and other startup leagues, but a mix of injuries, contract drama, and the same old habits kept him grounded. But Manziel's crash and burn went way deeper than just losing a roster spot. He blew through a fortune, burned bridges with his crew, and told the world he once stood ready to end it all, only saved by a gun that jammed at the critical second. Flipping the script, we have Ray Rice, a guy who torpedoed his career in a heartbeat inside a casino elevator. Rice was a legitimate beast in the backfield, drafted in round 2 back in 2008. He was the bedrock of the Baltimore Ravens offense. A 3-time Pro Bowler with a ring from Super Bowl 47, Rice sat at number 2 in franchise history for yards, carries, and scores. But everything changed on February 15, 2014. After a heavy night of drinking at the Revel in Atlantic City, Rice and his fiancée, Jenna Palmer, got into it. The spat followed them into a lift, where it looked like Palmer spit right in Rice's face. Rice lashed out, clocking her in the jaw. She hit the rail hard and was out cold before she hit the floor. He then dragged her limp body out into the hallway. The backlash was instant and nuclear. At first, the league slapped him with a 2-game suspension, a penalty everyone slammed as a total joke. Feeling the heat, the Ravens labeled it a serious matter, but their initial reaction was basically weak damage control. By March 27, 2014, a grand jury slapped him with 3rd-degree aggravated assault. Strangely, he and Palmer tied the knot just weeks later, even though the charges vanished after he completed a court-mandated program. His reputation was already in the gutter. The firestorm really ignited in September 2014 when the raw footage from inside the elevator leaked to the public. The outrage was so intense the Ravens cut him loose immediately, and the league suspended him indefinitely. He managed to win his appeal against the ban, but the phone never rang. No team wanted to touch him with a 10-foot pole. Sponsors fled. Madden NFL 15 scrubbed him from the game, and a career destined for greatness was dead in the water. Rice later owned up to it, saying there's zero excuse for violence and calling the whole thing a horrific mistake. He flirted with a comeback, but ultimately accepted that his days on the turf were history. Next on the list is a player who traded his jersey for a prison jumpsuit after a crime that ended in murder. Carruth. The guy was once tipped to be the next big superstar at wide receiver, a first-round stud in 1997, an All-American in college, and a rising supernova for the Carolina Panthers. He kicked off strong, and the franchise pegged him as their future face. But beneath the helmet was a man whose choices would erase him faster than any tackle. On November 16, 1999, Carruth made a call that obliterated his world and shattered the lives of everyone around him. His girlfriend, Cherika Adams, a 24-year-old real estate pro, was 8 months pregnant with his son. Prosecutors claimed Carruth wasn't keen on paying child support and wanted the pregnancy to just disappear. Rather than stepping up as a father, he orchestrated a cold-blooded hit. Carruth boxed Cherika's vehicle in on a Charlotte road, setting a trap so his hired gun, Van Brett Watkins, could pull alongside and empty a .357 Magnum into the car. 4 bullets tore into Cherika in an instant. Fighting through the agony, she dialed 911 and laid out the grim details, telling the operator Carruth had cut her off just seconds before the shots rang out. Then she slipped into a coma at the hospital. Surgeons had to race against the clock to deliver her child via emergency C-section. The boy, Chancellor Lee Adams, made it out alive, but 70 minutes without oxygen left him with cerebral palsy and lasting brain damage. Cherika succumbed to her wounds a month later, after Carruth had posted a $3 million bond on the condition he'd surrender if she or the child didn't make it. The moment Cherika died, Carruth hit the road. Authorities tracked him down the next day in Tennessee, curled up in a car trunk outside a motel with $3,900, some candy bars, and bottles of urine. The Panthers cut ties instantly, and the NFL slapped him with an indefinite suspension. In court, the prosecution painted a dark picture. Carruth paid Watkins to kill Cherika because she wouldn't terminate the pregnancy. His defense team tried to spin a tale about a drug deal gone south, but the jury wasn't buying a word of it. While he dodged a first-degree murder charge and the death penalty, the judge handed down a sentence of 18 to 24 years, keeping him locked up until his release in October 2018. Switching gears, let's look at Plaxico Burress, a guy who torched his own career not with malice, but with one incredibly stupid decision. Back in the day, Burress was a nightmare for defenders and one of the league's most dangerous deep threats. The Steelers grabbed him 8th overall in 2000, but he became a legend with the Giants, snagging that game-winning catch to shatter the Patriots' perfect season in Super Bowl 42. He looked invincible between the hash marks, but everything fell apart one fateful evening in 2008. It was November 28, 2008, and Burress walked into a Manhattan nightclub packing an unlicensed Glock. He tried to adjust the piece in his jeans, fumbled, and sent a bullet straight into his right thigh. The wound wasn't fatal, but the fallout was catastrophic. 48 hours later, he was turning himself in for weapons possession. Suddenly, he was staring down felony charges, serious jail time, and a legacy in tatters. The Giants suspended him without pay for the rest of 2008 and stashed him on the non-football injury list, ensuring he missed the postseason entirely. Burress put up $100,000 for bail, but the writing was on the wall. His career had taken a hit it couldn't recover from. By August 2009, he took a plea bargain that cost him 20 months in a cell and 2 years of probation. He spent his athletic prime sitting in a prison yard, effectively closing the book on his dominance in New York. He eventually made it back to the league for cups of coffee with the Jets and Steelers, but with only 48 catches total. The magic was clearly gone. Outside the stadium, his life was spiraling just as hard financially and legally. He got hammered with lawsuits and tax liens, eventually having to pawn his Super Bowl ring just to keep the Wolves at bay. Then, in 2015, he got indicted for stiffing the state on $46,000 in taxes, leading to probation and a hefty restitution bill. Even with his playing days in the rearview, Burress tried hard to stay relevant in the spotlight. He penned a book called Giant: The Road to the Super Bowl, did a stint on Celebrity Wife Swap, and grabbed a mic as an analyst for Sportsnet New York. Then there's the story of Colin Kaepernick, a quarterback whose career didn't end due to crime, but because he took a stand. Colin Kaepernick exploded onto the NFL scene like a supernova. A second-round pick for the Niners in 2011, he sat behind Alex Smith until mid-2012, when he took over and powered the team to Super Bowl 47. He was known as a lethal dual-threat weapon, and by 2013, he had San Francisco knocking on the door of the NFC Championship. But fast forward to 2016, and Kaepernick was heading straight for a cultural firestorm. During that preseason, he started sitting out the national anthem to shine a light on police brutality and systemic racism. After chatting with Green Beret Nate Boyer, he evolved the protest to taking a knee, a way to honor the military while still demanding change. It sparked a massive uproar, splitting the country down the middle. Half saw a traitor, the other half saw a hero. The gesture turned into a lightning rod, drawing angry tweets from President Trump and dominating the 24-hour news cycle. I am not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. Even though he clearly had the talent to start, NFL owners started viewing him as radioactive, a problem they didn't want to solve. Front offices were terrified of angry sponsors, alienated fans, and the media circus that would follow him into the locker room. Finally, in February 2019, Kaepernick signed a confidential settlement with the league, putting the final nail in his NFL coffin. His arm was good enough for a roster spot, but the politics were too hot to handle, so he pivoted his energy from touchdowns to full-time activism. He launched the Know Your Rights camp, poured millions into fighting for social justice, and teamed up with giants like Nike and Ben and Jerry's to push for racial equity and plant-based living. Turning the page, we look at Josh Gordon, a phenom whose time in the league was utterly derailed by substance abuse. When Gordon hit the pro scene, he was arguably the most physically blessed wideout of his era. Snapped up by the Cleveland Browns in the second round of the 2012 supplemental draft, he showed off world-class skills right out of the gate. While his debut season was respectable, 2013 was his breakout party. Even after sitting out a 2-game ban, he racked up a league-leading 1,646 yards through the air in only 14 matchups. He etched his name in the record books as the first guy ever to post back-to-back games with 200 receiving yards. The accolades rolled in, landing him spots on both the first-team All-Pro and the Pro Bowl roster. Everyone from the locker room to the broadcast booth agreed on one undeniable fact: Gordon possessed a generational skill set, yet beneath the reel of spectacular catches, his livelihood hung by a fragile thread that was bound to break. We're talking about a lifelong war with addiction. Gordon's struggles with substances started way before he ever put on a pro uniform. He confessed to popping pills in middle school, swiping gadgets to fund his fix, and getting kicked out of several schools along the way. By high school, he was banging in Houston, pushing product, packing heat, and sipping vodka while sitting in class. During his stint at Baylor, cops busted him and a buddy passed out in a Taco Bell drive-thru line with a stash of narcotics. He later spilled the beans that a coach helped him rig drug screenings so he could stay on the field. At least until another dirty sample got him suspended indefinitely. Once he got to the big leagues, the cycle just kept spinning, even while crushing it on game day. Gordon admitted he was frequently buzzed or stoned before kickoff, often blew off meetings, and walked in late looking glassy-eyed. The punishments hit fast and hard: 2 games in 2013, then a full-year ban that got cut down to 10 games in 2014. He missed all of 2015, and tried, but failed, to get back in the league multiple times throughout 2016. When he finally got the green light in 2017, he only made it 5 games before falling off the wagon again. Yet franchises kept handing him lifelines. He bounced from Cleveland to New England, Seattle, Kansas City, and Tennessee. But every shot at redemption hit the same dead end. Slip up again, get banned indefinitely again. Gordon later claimed he never took the penalties seriously, convinced he was untouchable. When the reality finally sank in, his prime playing days were already in the rearview mirror. Switching gears, let's talk about Ryan Leaf, a guy whose gridiron dreams were shattered by bad choices. And make no mistake, he wasn't just some random signal caller. He went second overall in the 1998 draft, taken right behind Peyton Manning, entering the league as a bona fide superstar out of Washington State. As a Heisman finalist, Leaf possessed the cannon arm, the raw skill, and the cocky attitude to own the NFL. Yet, within a couple of seasons, that potential completely evaporated, starting with a nightmare rookie campaign for the San Diego Chargers. He threw just 2 scores against 15 picks while building a notorious rep for fighting with the staff, the locker room, and the press. Heavy hitters like Junior Seau and Rodney Harrison were vocal about his toxic mindset. Between his terrible play, explosive rage, and lack of focus, Leaf went from a future icon to one of the biggest busts the sport has ever seen. Physical setbacks just poured gas on the fire. A blown shoulder cost him all of 1999, and nagging wrist issues hooked him on prescription pills. By 2001, after brief stops with the Chargers, Cowboys, Bucs, and Seahawks, he was washed out of the league for good. Leaf's life off the field went into a tailspin, too. A toxic mix of narcotics, breaking and entering, and legal drama landed him behind bars multiple times between 2010 and 2014. Rock bottom came in 2012 when he tried to take his own life. But thankfully, that wasn't how his story ended. Following years of substance battles and court dates, he got clean and became an ambassador for the Transcend recovery community, championing mental health and sobriety. He eventually made his way back to the game, reinventing himself as a sharp analyst and radio personality covering both college ball and the pros. Then there's the tragic case of a player whose time in the limelight was cut short by a string of criminal offenses. Enter Todd Marinovich, a quarterback who stepped onto the field carrying more hype and baggage than pretty much anyone else from his time. Born in 1969, he earned national fame under the moniker Robo QB. He was the result of a radical, science-based training regimen designed by his dad, Marv Marinovich, an old-school USC captain turned strength guru. From calculated meal plans to precision drills, Todd's entire existence was engineered for the gridiron. When he finally arrived at USC, he was already a headline sensation, a signal caller literally constructed to win. The Raiders grabbed him in the first round of 1991, hoping for a savior. But behind the facade, Marinovich was already coming apart at the seams. Back in 1991, while still a Trojan, he got busted for possession, a massive red flag for the addiction struggles that would haunt him. Once he joined the Raiders, things went from bad to worse as he flunked drug tests, couldn't stay in line, and butted heads with the coaching staff. Even though he showed flashes of brilliance on the gridiron, the chaos in his personal life totally eclipsed his raw athletic gift. The Raiders cut ties after just 2 seasons, abruptly shattering the promise of what was meant to be a legendary NFL run. Addiction hijacked the rest of his story, leading to a 1997 drug bust that landed him behind bars for months of hard time. By the year 2000, he was cuffed for assault, only to get busted on narcotics charges just 1 year later in 2001. The 2000s were a blur of revolving doors, constant arrests, stints in rehab, and fleeting efforts to piece his shattered life back together. Rock bottom hit in 2005 when Newport Beach cops found him in a public restroom with gear, claiming to be an unemployed artist and anarchist. Judges mandated serious rehabilitation programs, yet the cycle of sobriety was constantly broken by inevitable relapses. He scrambled for redemption in the CFL and Arena League, but his dependency sabotaged every single shot at a comeback. 2007 brought another possession charge and resisting arrest. And while he briefly found clarity, mentoring youth and speaking on recovery, the darkness returned. By 2009, he found himself back in a cell simply for ghosting a mandatory court appearance. The most shocking headline hit in 2016, when authorities discovered him completely nude and high in an Irvine stranger's backyard, trying to pry open a sliding door. Eventually, Marinovich channeled his chaotic energy into painting, seeking peace through recovery and deep self-reflection. Drop your take on this wild saga down in the comments below. Before you bounce, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to NFL Rivals so you catch every new drop.